When I'm starting a new scene, whether it's a playable level or a standalone game environment, the last thing I'm concerned about is lighting. Lighting comes at a later stage in the process, when the scene is already constructed. But in the beginning, I'm primarily focused on creating geometry. So using BSP brushes, inserting static meshes, working with landscape, implementing gameplay, and creating testing blueprints. For this, I need a basic daytime scene with even lighting. The default level that you get under File, New Level, this is a good start. Many use this as is without any changes. The scene comes with some lighting actors, sky sphere, fog, player start, and a ground plane. But there are some issues with the scene. You have very distracting auto exposure, shadows, the indirect lighting is too dark, and it's hard to judge scale of the environment. So what we're gonna do is tweak this default level to make it more construction friendly. So here's my 8-step checklist using the default level as a start that I use to begin creating environments and playable levels in. So step 1, let's go and begin our default level. Go to File, New Level, and choose Default. This gives us a direction light, atmospheric fog, skylight, reflection capture actor, player start, ground plane, and blueprint sky sphere. This is a very good start, but we're going to tweak a few actors. Step 2 is we want to adjust directional light and make sure that the intensity is set to 3.14, and it is. In some of the early versions of Unreal Engine, this was set to a very high intensity value. I think it was 10. 3.14 is a good base value to set your directional light for daytime lighting. Higher values may cause your materials and your PBR textures to be too bright due to light's high intensity. So 3.14 is a good base value to have. Step 3 is we need to update our skylight. So I'm going to drag a BSP box into a scene and we can see the influence of our directional light or our skylight, and it might be to some bug in 419. Just grab the directional light and rotate the angle a bit so it begins to light our scene. By default, skylight is set to static and we want to change this to stationary so we don't have to build our lights every time just to see what it does to our scene. So change it to stationary, and for source type we're going to keep it at default SLS capture scene, which will use our sky sphere to bounce light back into shadows. And if it's still too dark, go ahead and adjust intensity to 2. Now if you have some interior environments, so for that you might have to use temporary point lights and spotlights, and that's what I usually use. Step 4 is to expand your ground plane. Make the workable area bigger. For this I just duplicate the static mesh ground plane that comes with a default level to the size that I need to work in. Or you could use the landscape. Let's go ahead and move our sphere reflection capture so it surrounds the workable area. We only need one in our scene right now to capture and calculate reflections. Step 5 is to insert a mannequin for human scale reference. Right now it's hard to judge scale, so we're going to use UE4 Mannequin Mobile that you could download free from Unreal Engine 4 Marketplace. I have a quick tip on how to download it and include it in any of your projects. So let's go to UE4 Mannequin Mobile folder inside Mesh and drag SK Mannequin Mesh into our scene. And let's make sure the mannequin is right on our ground plane. I use this mannequin scale reference all the time in all of my projects. Step 6 says post-process volume. We need to adjust or control exposure or eye adaptation. This is when your eyes naturally adjust when you walk from bright environments into dark environments and vice versa. In Unreal Engine 4, this is enabled by default, but in the beginning of your environment construction, this is distracting. So you want to disable auto exposure, and we're going to do it through post-process volume. Go to volumes and left click and drag post-process volume into your scene. In the details panel, under lens and exposure, enable minimum and maximum brightness and set both of them to 1. Then we need to make this post-process volume universal, so it applies to the entire scene, whether you are inside it or not. So search for unbound and enable Infinite Extents Unbound. Step 7. We need to insert Light Mass Importance Volume. This tells Unreal Engine 4 where to focus its lighting calculations in. These areas are usually defined by where the player is going to be, and any external boundaries should not be inside Light Mass Importance Volume. Go to Volumes, and left-click and drag the Light Mass Importance Volume into the scene. We can use the Scale tool to resize it, or press Shift 5 to go into Geometry Editing mode, then select Faces, Edges or Vertices to resize the volume. We're going to surround the entire area where there is a ground plane. And final, step 8, is Blueprint Sky Sphere. The sky in the scene is a blueprint that contains additional functionality which you can tweak. So if you left click on the Sky Sphere, go inside the Details panel. Here you can change sun brightness, cloud speed, and sky colors. The one thing I will mention right now is the ability to change the angle of your directional light, which will influence the sky colors and the sun disk position in the sky sphere. Now, in order to see this updated in the sky, you do have to click on Refresh Material. So let's change the angle of our directional light, and nothing has been updated. So now select the sky sphere, and inside the Details panel, click on Refresh Material. This will update the material in the Blueprint Sky Sphere. To finish things off, I'm going to update the Skylight intensity to 1.5, and let's save this as our starting template. Go to File, Save Scene As, and name it My Starter Map. For more detailed tutorial on how to use the Blueprint Sky Sphere and light your environments, take a look at Nighttime Lighting Part 1 and 2 with Blueprint Sky Sphere. These two tutorials go into depth on how to light nighttime environments using Blueprint Sky Sphere.